Washington, D.C. lies awake under a shroud of fog. Mist rises from the Potomac River, draping the city's monuments in a ghostly veil. But there's no peace in the White House. The Situation Room hums with activity. Phones ring, aides whisper, screens flicker with real-time news alerts. At the head of a long conference table stands Pam Bondi, her hands flipping through a thick dossier stamped Emergency D.C. Circuit Ruling. Her sharp gaze says she doesn't need to read it. She already knows. A federal judge has just struck down President Donald Trump's executive order freezing $2 billion in foreign aid. Judge Nathan Kazim, Harvard-educated, Canadian-born, a recent appointee known for academic activism, has ignited a constitutional crisis with this ruling. The doors open with a soft whoosh. Trump strides in, flanked by two close aides. "Well," he says, his voice low but cutting, "tell me some rookie judge isn't running the country." Pam looks up, locking eyes with him. "He's not just any rookie, Mr. President. Judge Kazim overruled your order and demanded the funds be released within a week. The clock's ticking." The room falls silent. Trump paces to the window, staring into the darkness. "So you're telling me a guy who wasn't even a citizen 6 years ago just told the President of the United States what he can and can't do with foreign aid?" Pam nods. "Yes, that's exactly what happened." Trump turns and slams his palm on the table. "Not on my watch. You're taking the lead, Pam. I want this in front of the Supreme Court before they can even spin it." Pam gives a quick nod. "We've already started drafting the appeal, but it'll take more than legal paperwork. We need to hit back fast, on air, online, in every courtroom that'll listen." Trump cracks a smile. "That's why I hired you." As Trump exits, Pam turns to her team. "Get me every ruling Kazim has written in the past year. I want to know his weak points. If he wants to play constitutional scholar, let's test him." The team scatters. Hours later, Pam sits alone in her office, poring over Kazim's opinion. He calls the aid freeze a humanitarian failure and a betrayal of global leadership. She mutters under her breath, "Since when do unelected judges decide our foreign priorities?" A knock at the door. A junior aide steps in, handing her a poll. Fresh from Harvard, Pam scans the numbers. 63% of Americans support freezing foreign aid, especially amid domestic economic hardship. She smiles. This isn't just a legal fight anymore. It's political gold. She grabs her phone and calls Trump. "Sir, I think we've got the American people on our side. Time to go public." Trump doesn't hesitate. "Line it up. I want them to feel the pressure." The next morning, Pam stands on the steps of the federal courthouse in D.C., surrounded by flashing cameras and clustered microphones. Her tone is measured but sharp. "This isn't about one executive order. It's about who governs this nation. The president, elected by the people, or unelected judges rewriting policy from the bench?" The crowd murmurs, mics thrust toward her. Inside, Judge Nathan Kazim's chambers are neat, his robes pressed, his demeanor calm. But beneath it lies ambition. This is his chance to define his legacy. The courtroom is packed, senators, legal scholars, media elites. Pam enters with her team, no grand gestures, just quiet confidence. Kazim peers down from the bench, over his glasses. "Counselor Bondi, you're here to defend the president's decision to pause foreign aid." Pam steps forward, meeting his gaze. "Correct, Your Honor." Kazim raises an eyebrow. "On what grounds?" Pam's voice is clear. "Constitutional grounds. The president has sole authority over foreign policy. That includes discretion over aid distribution, especially when it involves national security. The courtroom buzzes softly. Kazim folds his hands. And morality? You're asking this country to turn its back on vulnerable allies. Pam offers a faint smile. With all due respect, Your Honor, morality begins at home. We have veterans sleeping on sidewalks, families skipping meals. If helping Americans first is immoral, maybe the definition of morality needs a closer look. The room goes quiet. Kazim leans back. We're not here to debate ethics. We're here to debate law. Pam's voice cools. Then let's talk law. Article 2 of the Constitution gives the president power over foreign relations. That power isn't shared with the judiciary. Kazim taps his gavel once. The court will recess. A ruling will be issued within 24 hours. Pam exits without speaking to reporters. Her message rang clear in the courtroom. Back at the White House, the legal war room hums. Staffers monitor media coverage while analysts pore over public reaction. Polls show 65% of Americans support the aid freeze, a jump from days ago. Trump's message is simple, and Pam echoes it in every interview. This isn't isolationism, it's prioritization. But the left doesn't back down. That night, Kazim appears on CNN with Anderson Cooper. Cooper's tone is reverent. Judge Kazim, you've become a lightning rod. What do you say to critics who call you an activist judge? Kazim offers a polished smile. I say upholding the Constitution doesn't make you an activist. It makes you a judge. Pam watches from her office, arms folded, expression unreadable. Guardrails, she mutters. Funny how those only apply when we're in office. The next morning, Kazim's ruling drops. The aid must be released within a week. The White House erupts in frustration. Phones buzz, emails fly, media pounces. Headlines scream, Trump blocked again by federal judge, judiciary strikes down executive overreach. But Pam is already ahead. She summons her team. We're appealing directly to the Supreme Court. No delays. This doesn't end in district court. It ends at the top. That evening, she's on Fox News with Sean Hannity. Hannity leans in. Pam, what are we really looking at here? Pam doesn't flinch. A legal system weaponized by the left. One judge with a political agenda just tried to override the commander-in-chief. If we let that stand, Pam sat across from Hannity, poised and sharp as ever. If we let that stand, then the presidency becomes meaningless, she said. Hannity nodded, fired up. And if the Supreme Court rules in your favor, Pam smiled. Then we've set a precedent that protects executive authority for years to come. The Supreme Court's marble columns rise through the morning haze. Inside, Pam stands in the corridor outside the chamber, legal brief in hand. She's not nervous, not anymore. She's prepared, down to every word, every pause, every counter-argument. The justices file in, robes flowing, expressions unreadable. Chief Justice John Roberts sits at the center, his face stone still. The swing vote no one can predict. Pam approaches the podium, her voice calm and deliberate, echoing in the chamber. The president isn't altering the appropriation, Your Honor. He's exercising discretion, something every administration has done. The executive doesn't write the checks, but it determines when and how funds are distributed, particularly in matters of national security. Justice Sotomayor interjects, but isn't this more than discretion? Isn't this a rejection of congressional will? Pam doesn't blink. Discretion isn't defiance. The president isn't rejecting Congress. He's fulfilling his constitutional role as the lead voice on foreign affairs. And when that discretion is denied by a single judge, we don't have a balance of power. We have judicial dominance. Her words hit hard. Opposing counsel rises, citing humanitarian risks, moral obligations, historical precedent. But the air has shifted. The justices lean forward when Pam speaks, shift uncomfortably when the other side argues. Roberts remains still, fingers steepled, unreadable. 2 days later, the ruling comes, 6-3 in favor of the executive branch. The president has the constitutional authority to pause foreign aid. The White House explodes with cheers. Legal teams clap. Staffers hug. Trump raises his hands in victory. Pam simply smiles. That evening, she's back on Fox News with Laura Ingraham. Ingraham leans in. "You didn't just win, Pam. You sent a message." Pam's eyes sharpen. That the president still governs this country, not federal judges. In the Oval Office, Trump sips a Diet Coke. "What's your next move?" Pam slides a file across his desk. "A presidential task force on judicial accountability. Not a purge, not an attack. Just a spotlight on every judge trying to legislate from the bench." Trump grins. "You're chairing it." It's not a request. It's a mission. The announcement makes national news. Senate Democrats call it a constitutional overstep. Pam faces the Judiciary Committee on live TV, cameras rolling, senators poised for blood. Senator Jennings, the ranking Democrat, doesn't waste time. "Ms. Bondi, do you believe your doctrine threatens judicial independence?" Pam leans forward slightly. "No, Senator. Unchecked power, executive, legislative, or judicial, threatens the republic. My answer is transparency. My answer is accountability. If judges want to shape policy, they can run for office. Otherwise, they stick to the law." A soft round of applause ripples through the chamber. The media pushes back, but cracks form behind closed doors. Some progressive judges begin recusing themselves from high-profile executive challenges, citing optics. Others clarify their rulings, careful not to seem political. Pam watches with cold precision. "We don't need to overturn every ruling," she tells her team. "We just need them to think twice." The idea takes root. Judicial activism now has consequences. One evening, Pam receives a handwritten letter from a former colleague she once clashed with. "Pam, I didn't agree with your approach at first, but I see it now. You didn't want to destroy the courts. You wanted to restore them." She reads it again, folds it, and slips it into her desk drawer next to the Constitution. One final case looms. A progressive judge rules an executive directive on intelligence. Oversight violates ethical norms. No statute, no precedent, just interpretation. Pam prepares the brief herself. In the Supreme Court, she stands outside the chamber, watching journalists buzz. A young aide asks, "Are you nervous?" Pam smiles. "I've already won." Hours later, the decision drops. 7-2 for the administration. Back at the White House, Trump raises a glass. "To the woman who taught the courts how to follow the law again." Pam doesn't toast. She nods. She didn't come for praise. She came for change, and she got it. Months later, Pam steps away from the spotlight. Her commission has reshaped judicial norms, her doctrine spreading across agencies and states. In interviews, she's called the woman who rewrote the balance of power. But she knows the truth. She didn't rewrite anything. She just reminded the country how the Constitution actually works.